in here before we start our warm-up. Just give everybody a chance. Already had a couple of kiddos try and join from their personal accounts, and that's a big no-no. Hi, Demi. Hi, Zariah. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Genesee. Hi, Diana. Oh, you went to New Orleans, huh? You went to Nolans. Hello, Alicia and Anaya. And oh, they're right here, hon. I probably should put them on. I already have a headache today. I don't need to make it worse, right? Hi. Philippe?
Hi, good morning.
Okay. Felipe? I do not have you on my list of students, Felipe. Demi, you're going to Hawaii? That sounds amazing. Okay, so Felipe, you are brand new to us, or at least to my class. Are you new to MVLA? Oh, Honolulu. Love Honolulu. Okay. I mean, like new to MVLA? Like, have you done online before as well, or no? Okay. So if you want to hang with me for a minute, I'm going to go through some things and I'll show you some of the places where you can find the ideas and things that you need. Angeline, you did book shopping. Like, I was wondering if you had, because I was going to be like, if she didn't, something was wrong.
Oh,
Golden
yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Nice. Went to a birthday party. Fun. I would like to say that my spring break was full of like tons of fun. I mean, I went to Tennessee, but mine was helping take care of my stepmom. So mine was a working spring break, I guess. But I mean, it was good to see family. Anybody else do anything for spring break? Nothing? No, nobody else did anything fun? Did anybody go see some movies? Go over to maybe California, for the beach, or, any one of the states around us. You relaxed. That is absolutely, like, that's a good thing. I see no problem with relaxing during spring break, right? Ooh, Disneyland. Oh, you went to Cali the week before? Okay. So nice. So did you guys just go for a day, or did you buy the multi-day pass, or for 3 days? That had to have been a lot of fun. Were you like super tired by the end of the 3 days? No? Wow, okay. Usually by day 3, I'm just tired from all of the walking. You wanted to go back for day 4? There we go. I mean, I don't blame you. Disneyland is supposed to be the happiest place on earth, right? All right, guys. So let's talk about what you guys need to be opening and getting done, because we have a new person in here, Felipe, and then I think we'll have another new person tomorrow. I'm going to show you guys just some things, and this is also just as a reminder. You exercise. That's good, Taj. So at the top, you're always going to see our announcements on Tuesdays and Fridays. Don't forget, that's when I do our, this is what you should be doing today. Here's what we've been working on. Here's what's due. Here's what's closing. Even though, I mean, if you think about it, we're kind of starting Q4, so there's not going to be a whole lot of things on tomorrow's, right? Mostly it'll be do your attendance assignment. So that's on our home page. All right, guys, we're in Q4. We are at the end, like coming to the end of the year. So anybody who has been slacking during Q3, like you have no other choice. If you do not want to repeat this class, you're going to have to like get the rears in gear and get some stuff taken care of. Okay. So Q4 course deadline, the work will be on the 15th. That will be your last day to submit. All right. So there's that. Remember, here's my email to get a hold of me, the All About Me page. When we go to our modules, in the module 0 for you, Felipe, there is a click right here for live chat support for HonorLock. And this is for everybody because I've had a lot of kids ask about HonorLock or they've had issues with HonorLock. This is where when I say, have you chatted with them? This is what I'm talking about. You click here and it takes you to live support with them. Okay. And then you just need to make sure that your HonorLock is good, that you have your ID. If you do not have your school ID, remember, just ask your counselor for a picture out of Infinite Campus for you, and they will email it to you. So you'll have that. You have to print it out, and then you can show that as your ID. Okay. I don't have access to that page, or I would totally do that for you. I can't access that page. All right. So that's in module 0. Scholars attendance. So Samuel, if you have not, and Braden, if you have not, don't forget to do your attendance for the week. The rest of the attendance assignments are right in here. Our weekly agendas this week is in there, Q4, week 1. Remember, it's a link, right? So when you click on here, kind of gives you a heads up of what we are doing. And then there's the link to the actual agenda. And it takes you to this page. And then as I add the videos that we're doing, I will link them right there. Okay, so that'll turn into an actual live link. Once, you know, we're done with our thing and I get the video and I wait for Google to do its thing, and then I'll upload it into YouTube and then we'll be all good. Okay. Let's go back. So we are finishing up module 8. So that is where everybody needs to be. In fact, we are at module 8, lesson 4. So if you have not already done so, can you please open up your module 8, lesson 4 course arc and your module 8, lesson 4 journal. So remember, you open up the course arc. And of course, we're talking about Oceania, Australia, and the Pacific, right? We're going to talk about ways that the region has been impacted by major changes today and how different groups are reacting to the change, because we're talking about change over time. Okay. And so when you come to the introduction page, right here is your blue link. Remember, in your course arcs, anything you see like that is a link. That's what we're going to click on. So if you have not already done so, please click on this and make a copy of your journal. And then if you will give me the thumbs up reaction, that would be amazing. And let me know. So I see a couple of kiddos. I'm assuming the rest of you guys are opening them up. Okay, so we're just going to go. It says the change will happen whether we as humans are ready for it, right? No place exhibits this idea as much as Oceania and Antarctica. Oceania has been populated for thousands of years. Many islands have been created over time from plate tectonics. Antarctica, while not always occupied, has experienced much change over the years. Both of these places also represent the current issue of change, in that of climate change. And this lesson is going to examine these areas and changes over time. possible future changes for them if things don't change. Okay. So when you open up your journal, right, you're going to have your name. So the areas we're going to be putting information in is we're going to talk about the islands of the Pacific. And the question is, explain the concern that the Pacific Islands face if the global temperatures continue to rise. Then we have our Google Map tour. And remember, you can't just say, oh, they all have to do a change over time. We're going to break them all down, okay? And then our writing activity, what can be done to help these regions? And remember, you have to give me a 5 to 8 sentence paragraph. A 2 sentence paragraph, a 3 sentence, that's not a paragraph. You're not getting full credit, okay? So is everybody ready for us to move on to vocabulary? There's a few kiddos I did not see. Yeah? All right. Okie dokie. All right. So vocabulary. So let's talk about these. So the first one is bushfire. During the heat of summer, Australia faces a crisis of many brush fires. So remember, it's really hot there, right? And during the summertime, if you guys remember this, a couple of years ago, they had so many fires. It was a national disaster. And that was when a lot of animals, both kangaroos and koala bears, were killed in those fires. So it's become a major issue in Australia for that. So if you think about, like, we see those like in different areas. That's okay, Nisa. In the United States, fires, especially Northern California. Remember when we had those about a year ago? Those were pretty bad. Same thing happens in Australia, right? Plate tectonics, again, going back here, talking about some science, right? Many of the islands of Asia were formed through the movement of plate tectonics. So generally, a lot of them are because of volcanoes, because of the movement of the plates. Volcanoes have, kind of erupted. And over time, they've grown into the islands that we have today. Climate change, and that is, while some deny that climate change is real, it cannot be denied that the global temperature continues to rise. Now, where the scientists do not agree with one another, which then makes it kind of hard for the rest of us, right? If the scientists can't agree, we know that because we've looked at, all kinds of scientific methods of different time periods, we go through climate change. Like, it is a cycle that we go through on planet Earth. So some people are like, we're just hitting that cycle. Other people are like, we're doing it faster because of things humans have done. Others think that it's even worse. And so when they talk about, the global temperature rising, so the temperatures are rising, which is what is causing the waters to rise because ice caps are melting, which is causing problems for those islands that are fixed, right? They don't just float, guys. They're actually fixed. So if the water keeps, rising, think about that, right? So we will be talking about that. Erosion, waves hitting on beaches is most likely to cause major erosion to the land. You guys have seen that wind causes erosion, water causes erosion, where it wears down the rock and the sediment and the sand. A cyclone. Okay, so in the Pacific, these water, right, these weather issues are called cyclones. In the Atlantic, we call the exact same weather anomaly a hurricane. So a cyclone and a hurricane are the exact same thing. They call the ones coming out of the Atlantic a hurricane, so we know where they're at. And the ones in the Pacific are called cyclones, so we know where those are at. Okay, but it's the same thing. All right, so there's that. All right, so a system of winds rotating inward to an area of low atmospheric pressure with a counterclockwise northern, yeah. Thank you for not making me read all of that. I appreciate it. The process of eroding or being eroded. Erosion. This is some simple vocab, aren't they? Change in global and regional climate patterns, climate change. A theory explaining the structure of the Earth's crust, plate tectonics. And then fire in the brush or scrub is a bushfire. All right, does everybody have this done on your course arc? Okay. Felipe, are you following along with us? Are you doing okay? Okay, just making sure. All right, so we can move on to our next page, guys. Yeah?
Yes, we can move on.
Thank you. All right, so maybe you've watched the news and you've heard the words climate change or global warming, but you didn't know what they were. And well, it says that there's supposed to be a video here, but I don't see.
It's Mr. Bill Nye.
Is it supposed to be?
Yeah, well, I see Bill Nye on my page.
Do you guys have a video? I do not have a video. Oh, my thing is still doing the little circle. So maybe that's why mine is taking forever to load. Let's try that. Good. Well, I have to wait for my little circle to stop. Is it Bill Nye Climate Change? Is that the one? Let's see. Hold on. All right. Let's try it again. Mine is still not showing up. Okay, guys, can you tell me, is it like Bill Nye and then climate change? Is that what I'm looking for?
I'll tell you the name. Let's see. No, it doesn't even give the name because it's not on YouTube.
Let me see. Hang on. What about this one?
It is that one.
That's that one? Okay, so we'll put that one.
This is Rachel. Rachel is a science teacher and she is fed up. This is Ryan. Ryan.
We hear it so much that it feels like a buzzword, but it is far from it. Climate change is a real and serious issue. But isn't the climate always changing? What exactly is climate changing? Why should we care? Well, the Earth's climate has changed throughout history. Most of these slight changes are caused by small variations in the Earth's orbit. But climate change as we know it today is characterized by an abrupt increase in the Earth's temperature. It is estimated to have gotten 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in just the last century. 10 out of the last 13 years were the warmest on record. 97% of climate scientists agree that this new tendency is not caused by the variations of the Earth's orbit, but rather very likely caused by human activities. That means
I know you think that isn't much, Adriel, but when a planet has a core temp and like things are very delicately balanced, any kind of increase or decrease, even at that level, has a massive butterfly ripple effect, is what he's saying.
means you and me. And since the Industrial Revolution, we have come a long way. Humans built airplanes, faster cars, developed remarkable technology, and learned how the natural resources around us can be used for our benefit. Although this has led to many wonderful inventions and advancements, like the device you're using to watch this video, or the ability to take a plane halfway around the world, it also means we've increased our consumption of natural resources and in turn released a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, greenhouse gases occur naturally, but in excess can be dangerous to our planet. Modern human activities have increased the release of non-naturally occurring greenhouse gases because we have stepped up our demand for burning fossil fuels. The composition of greenhouse gases traps heat radiated from the sun. The more heat they trap, the warmer our planet gets. And as our planet gets warmer, we begin to feel the effects. One of climate change's biggest victims is our oceans. Oceans regulate the Earth's temperature and provide 50% of the Earth's oxygen. Now, climate change has increased the global temperature of the oceans by more than 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969. Although a warmer ocean might seem inviting to a beachgoer, it actually has devastating consequences for supporting life at sea. One of those consequences is ocean acidification, a direct effect of increased dissolved CO2. Since the late 18th century, ocean surface acidification has increased by 30%. A higher acid content means calcifying species, like oysters and clams and shallow water corals, are at risk, putting the entire ocean food web at risk. This is bad news for the 1 billion people relying on the ocean as its primary source of protein.
So you understand what he's talking about, right? When he's talking about food webs, you remember doing this in your science classes? And, you know, everything relies on everything else, right? And so one small change, while it doesn't seem like it might be that big, can have consequences that are not just in that one little area. It just keeps going and going and going and going, right? That's what he's talking about.
Climate change has also caused the sea level to rise. Just in the last century, sea levels have risen 6.7 inches, but the rate in the last decade has nearly doubled. Sea levels have risen because as the ocean gets warmer, it swells. On top of that, glaciers and ice sheets are melting. Antarctica lost 36 cubic miles of ice between 2002 and 2005, and since 1994, each year on average, the Earth has lost 400 billion tons from its glaciers. That's like an ice cube 7.5 kilometers on a side, 4 miles on a side, melting and flowing into the sea. When all that ice melts, it fills up our oceans, and just like filling up a bathtub, the shores can't hold all that water, and coastal regions get flooded. Troubling signs of climate change are increased extreme weather events. Natural disasters like floods, tornadoes, and deadly heat waves are more obvious to humans because of their immediate impact and their sharing of the images in the media. Climate change, as we know it today, is change in our Earth's overall temperature with massive and permanent ramifications. Although its consequences can be planet-threatening, scientists still believe there are things we can do on a personal level to help. Recycle and reuse things. Walk or use public transportation to get to work. Turn off your electronics when you're not using them. Eat less meat. While you're at it, eat more locally grown vegetables and foods. And last but not least, spread your knowledge and concerns about climate change with others. When it comes to climate change, the main takeaway is that it's real. And although we are part of the cause, we can also be part of the solution.
All right, well, I got to play that one. So do you guys have any questions or anything that you did not understand about what he was talking about? I mean, I think even if he isn't the nicest guy in the world, Bill Nye does do a good job of explaining. All right, so are you guys okay with that? Can we move on to Islands of the Pacific? On to the next one, which is our first question on our journal. I need yes or no, guys. Yes? Okay. All right, so when we're talking about the Pacific, right, and Oceania, it's this large area, and there are tons and tons of archipelagos here. Remember, an archipelago is a series of a bunch of, oh, he does all kinds of things. All kinds of things. Like Bill Nye was around when I was in school. Yes, he's that old. So, but this is the area that we're talking about. So it says in the map, in the above map, it may be difficult to see the elevation colors of the different islands. However, a majority of them are mostly green, meaning they are at or near sea level. This low elevation has its downsides on a regular basis. This area is struck by major storms and flooding on a regular basis. What would happen if over time the sea levels change? Not overnight, but over years. How would that affect some of these small nations? And so it says, let's take a look. In 2014, every person living in the village of I messed these up so bad. Vunidogoloa, I think is how it's pronounced. On the second largest of Fiji's more than 800 islands and islets, packed up and moved. The villagers of V didn't leave their ancestral homeland because they were seeking a prettier setting or better job opportunities or to get away from noisy neighbors. They moved with the help of Fiji's government to higher ground a mile further inland to escape rising sea levels caused by climate change. The 70 or so residents who had suffered severe flooding in recent years were part of Fiji's first relocation of an entire village due to rising sea levels. So if an island is stuck, right, and the waters come up, they're like the water's rising. Remember, these oceans aren't floating, they're fixed, or these islands. So if the water is going up, these aren't going with it. The water is just going up, but the islands are staying the same, which means they're moving in, right? If you are in a village that is close to those areas, like they just did with that one, they have to move you further away at a higher elevation because of the water that's coming in, okay? Fiji, along with the small island states of Vanuatu and Kiribati, among others, is on the vanguard of nations facing an imminent threat from climate change. In the past half century, Fiji's temperatures have risen measurably. So too has the level of the ocean water surrounding its many islands. Because much of its economy depends on products from the land and sea, Fiji faces a particularly ominous economic future as consequences of climate change. Already, Fiji has had to relocate an entire village, a difficult and costly venture. And then the next one says, here's the climate reality. Sea level rise is an undeniable and existential threat for the people who live on islands in the Pacific. While it's bad enough that seas are climbing around the world, the Pacific region is seeing seas rise much faster than the global average. This is a very real threat, for those islands could be swallowed up by the sea. In fact, some already have been. Here's a stark choice that one low-lying Pacific island nation faces: either relocate or evacuate. The Republic of the Marshall Islands, which consists of 29 atolls made up of over 1,200 islets, are considering whether to relocate all 55,000 of its citizens, making them climate refugees, or to build one elevated island and consolidate its population there. As Marshall Islands President Hilda Hine told former U.S. Vice President Al Gore during the 2019 24 Hours of Reality Global broadcast, by 2030, we are expected to be underwater. So it is our livelihood, it is the very existence of the Marshall Islands that is at stake. Okay, so we've talked about, I can never pronounce that word, and when we're talking about Vunidogoloa, I'm probably massacring that, Fiji, and then talking about the Marshall Islands, right? In addition to the changes of coastlines, there's also the concern that the rising temperatures level of the sea, warmer waters can cause storms and cyclones to be stronger. It's kind of like when hurricanes get into the Gulf of Mexico, they get much bigger and nastier because the Gulf of Mexico water is very, very warm. And so it supercharges hurricanes when they get in that area. That is the fear everywhere else, right? The stronger the storm, the possibility that the storm surge will be higher and erosion will be worse. This would be devastating for these small island nations. And then we've got one video, and then we're going to do our question.
Whenever we see a catastrophic storm like Hurricane Harvey, we have to ask if it has anything to do with man-made climate change.
Could climate change be fueling the history-making nature of this storm?
We know that humanity's carbon footprint has shifted the baseline conditions of the climate, the context in which every weather event takes place. But trying to isolate the human influence from everything else that's going on can be really hard, especially for hurricanes, or what scientists call tropical cyclones. They're super complex, and the quality of the historical data we have for them isn't great. We do have physics, though. Hurricanes are driven by the transfer of heat from the sea to the air through evaporation. The storm's maximum possible wind speed, or its potential intensity, depends in part on how warm the ocean is. And of course, we're warming the ocean. So researchers expect intense tropical cyclones to become more frequent if we continue to warm the planet.
That's one place I think you find a very strong consensus among scientists who study the connection between hurricanes and climate, that the frequency of high-end events will probably go up.
And that shows up in climate models. This is from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It summarizes the computer model results for tropical cyclones near the end of the century compared to today. The first bar represents the total number of tropical cyclones globally. That's projected to go down a bit. But the second bar represents the frequency of the most intense storms, categories 4 and 5. And the models show those increasing. And that's bad news because those are the storms that cause the most damage and the biggest loss of life. Now, when they try to look at specific regions, it gets really messy. In the North Atlantic, for example, the models show category 4 and 5 storms may be increasing by 200% or maybe decreasing by 100%. So yeah, the resolution of their simulations just isn't fine enough yet to give us good regional projections, even if they expect more intense storms globally. But there's another really clear, consistent result here. This fourth bar, it represents the amount of rain that hurricanes will bring, and that's going up, not just for our Atlantic coast, but for the Pacific coast of North America, the Western Pacific, the South Pacific, and the Indian Ocean, everywhere. The hurricanes of the future will be wetter, so coastal cities will face freshwater flooding from the sky, paired with storm surge from the sea, which is higher now because we're also causing sea levels to rise. And that trend of wetter storms isn't just for hurricanes. Heavy precipitation events from other types of storms have been increasing in the US and should continue to increase across the country. Even in places that might see less rain over the whole year, they'll...
Did you guys see over spring break, they were talking about the flooding in Northern California and the unbelievably large amount of snowfall? Their snow caps are huge, which is bad for them because they're dealing with those issues, and that precipitation is good for us because all of those snow caps actually feed into Lake Mead. So again, when we're talking precipitation, we're talking, no, it wasn't Southern California, it was Northern California, Taj. Near like mid to Northern California, up near like Reno and Tahoe for us. And those areas for us got tons of snow as well. So when they talk about precipitation, don't forget, we're not just talking rain, we're also talking snow, sleet, hail, right? I mean, let's be honest, we've had how much snow in Las Vegas over the winter? Like, when does that ever happen, right? So there's definitely been some differences or changes in the amount of precipitation around the globe, okay? Okay. Let me mute and I'll finish playing the video.
They'll get more days with really heavy precipitation. This comes down to basic physics too. Warmer air can take up more water before it dumps it back down on us. All of this means global warming worsens floods like the kind that hit Houston. But it's not our destiny to hurt ourselves like this. It depends on what we choose to do now. We could rethink our infrastructure and regulations to minimize the damage. But unless we also start cutting our carbon emissions and shifting the world to clean energy, it's just gonna get worse.
All right, so one of the things that the video does not tell you, okay, is when they're talking about clean energy, they're not talking about the United States. Guys, we have some of the strictest environmental protection laws. They're talking about China and India, the two largest countries with the largest population, that literally, if they were to shut down their like factories for one day of their factories is almost like 3 years worth of any type of pollution that the United States could put out one day. So when we see things like this, you need to keep in mind that, you know, it's not just the United States. We actually have some of the best environmental laws, and we are absolutely relatively clean in how we deal with everything. the countries who are not part of, you know, the global 8. They're not part of the system, and they kind of get left out, and yet they're the worst polluters. So when they say things need to be taken care of, you've got to remember it's those 2 large countries, right? So we have a question in our journal, right? And it says, explain the concern that the Pacific Islands face if the global temperature continues to rise. Can you guys tell me, what should we put in there? What is the concern? And you can unmute if you want to unmute and tell me that way. Oh, look at you, Taj, go. All right. So if temperatures continue to rise, sea levels will keep rising, right? Global temperature, good save there, Taj. The fear is that they're going to keep rising, making those islands go underwater, okay? The citizens who live on those islands will have their homes flooded, meaning they will have to either move to a higher area or evacuate completely off the island, right? And if the temperature rises, water temperatures will also rise too, causing more cyclones and hurricanes more often, as well as, we should also add in there, as well as disrupting the biosphere of the oceans, right? So if global temperatures continue to rise, sea levels will keep rising, causing islands to be pushed underwater. This would force their citizens to either find higher ground to move to or evacuate altogether. Which is, it's costly and time consuming, right? Because remember, these are a lot of islands that are not rich islands, right? With water temperatures rising, the threat of increased levels of cyclones / hurricanes. They're the same thing, guys, right? Of increased levels, because like those level 4s are going to be increasing. Is a fear along with increasing precipitation. Right? These rising temperatures can also have a deadly effect on the ocean biome. Oh, effect should be an E. Anything else? Are we good? Thank you, Taj. You did a really good job on that. All right, let's go back. I think we have time to go into Antarctica. And then if you guys want, since Taj already put his on there, I will add this, the one that I typed, to our chat as well. Okay. All right. So we're talking about Antarctica. The 1985 discovery of the so-called ozone hole in the atmosphere. Oh, I'm sorry. Just got an email. In the stratosphere above the continent fueled a growing debate about global warming and led to the conclusion that the release of chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere harms the ozone layer. In 2005, scientists discovered that the glaciers of the Antarctic Peninsula were rapidly shrinking, most likely due to climate change. A study reported in Science magazine showed that almost 90% of the ice bodies streaming from the peninsula's mountains to the ocean are losing mass. Other scientific discoveries in Antarctica include breakthroughs in the studies of glaciology, meteorology, geomagnetism, global weather control, seismology, and ionospheric physics. Radio echo soundings have outlined the details of the landscape below the ice and have led to the discovery of large freshwater lakes between the Earth and the bottom of the ice. In 2007, scientists announced the discovery of 4 giant lakes under the Antarctic ice. Taken together, the 4 lakes are as large as Lake Vatosk, the biggest body of water so far discovered in Antarctica. The 4 lakes lie under the recovery ice stream in Queen Maud Land, also known as Drowning Maud Land. Deep core drillings of the ice cover have given climatologists a glimpse of the changes in the Earth's weather over tens of thousands of years. Antarctica, which claims or contains 90% of Earth's fresh water, has become a land of climatic paradoxes. Ice sheets have been melting around the edges of the continent more quickly than anticipated. As warming temperatures accelerate, glaciers' movement into the surrounding oceans. The Antarctic Peninsula is among the most rapidly warming areas on Earth, where large ice shelves have been crumbling into the surrounding seas for several years. Temperatures on the West Antarctic Peninsula have risen 8.8 degrees Fahrenheit in winter since 1950 and 4.5% Fahrenheit during the summer. At the same time, sections of Antarctica's interior have experienced a pronounced cooling trend, whereas most other areas of Earth have warmed. Some Antarctic ice shelves are even disintegrating in the winter. So what Antarctica is warming up? So what that their ice caps are melting? They don't have a permanent population. All they have are different scientists from different countries who settle for a time and study things. How will that affect me? As you read, 90% of our fresh water comes from this area. If the ice shelves that hold that water begin to melt, what will happen to water levels? What will happen to the islands in the Pacific Ocean that we read about? The example of change over time is one that is apparently speeding up. That could have major consequences for all of us here on Earth. So what percent of our fresh water comes from Antarctica? 90. Good. When was the ozone hole found over Antarctica? 1985. Good. Yes, they told us our hairspray was causing it. No joke. That's what they told us. Right? Should the ice shelves in Antarctica continue to melt, it will have no impact. We know that is false. All right. Does everybody have these answered? Yes? All right. Australia and climate change. All right, so few countries see almost every side of the climate crisis as clearly or have as much to lose as Australia. Tourists know the country for the koalas and kangaroos that fill nature shows and iconic places like the Sydney Opera House, hello, Finding Nemo, that seem to appear in every Hollywood film shot down under. And then there's the timeless mystery of Vegemite. But talk to many climate scientists and they will tell you that Australia is especially vulnerable to the climate crisis, putting all this wonder at risk. Talk to many activists and they'll tell you it's no wonder since Australia exports more coal than any other nation on Earth. But there's good news too. The country is also home to an incredible community of activists who fought potentially world-changing developments like the Carmichael coal mine tooth and nail. So what's at stake in the fight against coal for the climate solutions in Antarctica? Here are the 4 key ways that climate change is impacting the nation and its people And one big way you can help turn Australia's climate fighting potential into a reality. So heat and drought. Here is the climate reality. Since 1910, Australia's climate has warmed by more than 1 degree Celsius or 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, without action, Australia is expected to warm as much as 5 degrees Celsius or 9 degrees Fahrenheit by 2090. Simply put, Australia is already hot and dry country and is expected to generally get hotter and drier without action on climate change. And make no mistake, an increase of 5 degrees Celsius is a huge deal. Guys, areas in Australia routinely hit, they're like, oh, it's 120 degrees. Oh yeah, that's summer. We don't have as many places in the United States that hit those temperatures, but they, like, an entire, almost 2/3 of the continent of Australia does, okay? We've already seen the impact of rising temperatures today. In 2018, temperatures in Sydney soared over 47 degrees Celsius. That's 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Guys, Sydney's on the water. Areas that are along the water tend to not get as hot when they're near large bodies of water because the water has a moderating effect on the temperature. And Sydney still hit 117 degrees. It was the hottest day the city had seen in nearly 80 years. Even though heat waves are not a new phenomenon, climate change is making heat waves more common and more severe and longer lasting. Heat waves have real impact on human health and well-being, leading to heat exhaustion and even heat stroke. There's a direct link between hotter world and more drought. Andrew Keane, a climate scientist in the University of Melbourne, explained the connection to The Guardian. In general, climate change is exacerbating drought, mainly because in a warmer world, we experience more evaporation from the surface, and we project for that to continue into the future. So when it does rain, more of that water is likely to be lost to the atmosphere through evaporation than before human-caused climate change. In 2018, Australia battled its worst drought in living memory, and climate models indicate that as rain patterns continue to change and heat continues to rise, Southern Australia in particular will spend more and more time in drought going forward unless we act. Now, I do need to let you guys know when they say we need to act, you need to understand not all scientists agree. Okay, so, and the other part you need to also understand is activists are generally not scientists. So they are passionate at what they believe, but they aren't necessarily the most knowledgeable in what they're saying. Okay, so everything we read about this, we take with a grain of salt, right? Here's the climate reality. Fire season in Australia has become longer and longer since the 1950s. Brush fires, what we call wildfires, are also becoming more extreme, especially in the southern and eastern parts of the country, which is where most of the people in Australia live. We already know that Australia is becoming hotter and drier due to climate change. At our Climate Reality Leadership Core Training in Los Angeles, Ken Thompson, former Deputy Fire Chief for the state of New South Wales, reported that fire season now runs for 9 months of the year in Australia. He explained the climate is changing and we're seeing the effects of that on the front line by more and more fires, more frequently and more severe. At the end of 2018, The Guardian characterized fire conditions in the nation as catastrophic, as residents endured an extreme heat wave. In fact, at some points in mid-November 2018, the eastern state of Queensland battled nearly 200 fires, something Anastasia Palaszczuk, I probably can't say that right, Queensland's premier, described as off the charts. She has went on to say no one has ever recorded these kinds of conditions ever in the history of Queensland. Agriculture and livestock. Here's the climate reality. Farmers depend on a steady climate to grow food and raise livestock. Climate crisis makes it increasingly difficult for farmers to grow food for Australia. As Australia's climate changes, every type of farmer will be affected, from those who raise dairy cows, to fruits and vegetable producers, to wine growers, to everything in between. According to the Melbourne Sustainability Society Institute's report, global warming impacts on food and farming regions in Australia. So dairy cows can't take the heat. Heat stress on dairy cows typically reduces milk yield by 10 to 25% and by up to 40% in extreme heat wave conditions. Hot cows can't produce milk, okay? The largest fruit industry in Australia, the wine grapes that they have, well, think about it. Grapes need water, and if you're in a drought, you're not going to have nearly as much, and there goes a major export, right? Carrots are the nation's most valuable vegetable to export. Higher temperatures associated with climate change are likely to make carrot production less viable in warmer areas, with shift to cooler regions such as Tasmania. They also, like, the heat makes carrots taste yucky. One Australian farmer explained it, there's no doubt climate change is a reality now. We're seeing abnormal temperatures. We're seeing abnormal fluctuations. Climate change will certainly disrupt food security. There's no doubt about it. Okay, ocean Great Barrier Reef. So here's the climate reality. The Great Barrier Reef is larger than the Great Wall of China and the only living thing on our planet that can be seen from outer space. It might seem too huge to hurt, but our carbon dioxide emissions are killing the reef. Ever heard of ocean acidification? We explained at the beginning. So our oceans are an incredible carbon sink. They absorb about 25% of the carbon dioxide humans produce every year. But this is changing sea surface chemistry drastically. When carbon dioxide is absorbed by the ocean, it dissolves to form carbonic acid. The result, not surprisingly, is that ocean becomes more acidic, upsetting the delicate pH balance that millions and millions of organisms rely on. Our oceans are being hit hard by a double whammy. They're becoming warmer and more acidic, all because of greenhouse gas emissions. Since 1910, Australia's ocean surface temperatures have warmed by about 1 degree Celsius or 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so we've got like 2 minutes left in class. Let's do these. By 2090, could heat and drought. Okay. Seasons last nearly 9 months of the year. The bushfires, good. Warmer temperatures make carrots tougher to grow. Agriculture and livestock. And then the ocean, right? Making our oceans more acidic. All right, so we're going to stop here today. Tomorrow we will finish up with the Google Maps tour and the writing portion of that. Also, don't forget, tomorrow afternoon is small group meet. Remember, 12:30 to 2:30. The code is MVLA Rather SSG. And attendance assignments. Okay, so yes, you'll get a remind text. And yes, there will be an announcement. And we are done for the day, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. And I'll see you tomorrow if you need any help, okay? Bye.